retired metalhead weatherman here. Hopefully you guys are doing well and staying warm on this Monday night. Well, you pretty much know why we're here. We're doing an update on this potential Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Well, I don't even know what kind of storm to call it at this point. I wouldn't call it a winter storm. I don't think this is going to turn into a severe weather event. It's just odd right now, and there's still a lot of uncertainty revolving around this. A lot of things have changed yet again today, so that's why I keep having to make update videos. We're gonna try to look at some of the more intricate stuff like snowfall totals possibly, but we're kind of all over the place with that, and there's nothing really ironclad. If there is any good news to be had with this though, it's that we do seem to have a little bit of we're starting to hone in on some agreement as far as the timing is concerned. But given the nature of the models over this last week, per se, I'm not really willing to jump on that either. So only thing we can do is just look at this run and then I guess look within the next 6 to 12 hours and see how things progress from there. But let's go ahead and do something a little bit different today. We're gonna look at the models here, but instead of looking at a whole model loop, we're gonna look at the trend here. So we're looking at the euro, and this is from like midnight. This is the midnight run from the euro. This is the morning run, afternoon run, and 18Z. So what I want you to pay attention to is this little dip here in the jet stream that's coming from this low pressure center. I want you to note that each time that we look at a new run from this starts to go further and further back and become more positively tilted, which would indicate not only a weaker storm but less organized. So I do think snow will be on the backside of this system here, but this will not be anywhere near as impressive as what we were seeing in previous runs like this right here. But we'll move this along, and it just keeps on digging further and further back to the west. And this isn't the only model that's doing this. We look at the GFS, and it's actually the same thing. But here we're also looking back to about the 19th instead of just this morning here. So we'll move this along, and lo and behold, we're getting the same thing. And then here's the odd thing: if you look at it on yesterday's run around lunchtime, we're starting to push back this way, and then once we get into the overnight hours, we're doing this again. And this time we've held in that trend, but I'm still not sure if I'm sold on this. So let's go ahead and get a look at the full loop here. So we'll start out with the GFS. We'll skip along, and here's our storm system, and this is in the on Thanksgiving morning right here. Some snow is possible, or likely, I would say, for some parts of Arizona, especially some parts of New Mexico, and maybe even the panhandle of Texas. But this trough digs down far into the south of the border actually, and then we have, I don't know if this stalls out or whatever this does, but we've been seeing this run a lot on the channel, just in general. It's kind of confusing, but this scenario doesn't really allot for too big of a warm sector to develop, and there just doesn't really seem to be a whole lot of organization with this low. Not a lot of strength, so a lack of energy, a bad pull of moisture. So I'm becoming less and less confident in a severe weather threat, which is of course good news, but it's still confusing, I would say. I'm still trying to hone in on what this may do as far as snow is concerned, because this low pressure here looks messy. It looks completely disorganized, and it's not really pulling in any cold air like it was in previous runs as well. So it's going to be confusing trying to figure out what happens next with this. And then we'll go back to the 12Z Euro, and for the most part it's pretty much the same thing. Like, we move this along, and then here's our system right here. Looks a little bit better organized. Doesn't dip as far south, but on the 18Z we started to see this trend a little bit further south too. But we can only look up to 90 hours, unfortunately, with the 18Z run here. So we get a look at this being a little bit better organized as of right now, and maybe a little bit more of a warm sector develops, but still, we're not getting a good pull of moisture in. It's not a, there's a little bit more energy, but I think it's a little too far to the north, too far, and the lifting mechanisms too far north of the warm sector to really create a severe weather event of any kind. But this does look like a bigger snowstorm according to this 12Z run here. And then this could become a big event, especially around the northeast here. So there's still potential for a snowstorm. I'm leaning towards less and less of a severe weather threat as of right now. Of course, given the nature, like I said before, given the nature of the recent model runs, I'm not going to hold my breath here. Alright, so now that we've cleared this, let's go ahead and look at what the model runs look like at the maximum of the 18Z Euro. And you'll kind of see that all of them are starting to fall into agreement here. Even the CFS, which is a extremely long-range model, not the most reliable one, but even that's kind of showing a very similar look to the rest of the models here. Maybe a little bit further to the south and west, but beyond that, though, there's the max on the 18Z Euro at 90 hours out. Similar plot point as the Canadian and the GFS. And even the only one that's really kind of out of whack here is a model I rarely look at, the British model. Nothing against those guys, but it's just kind of, these guys aren't really well known for their weather models. Every once in a while they get a good forecast right, get a really good forecast, but more often than not, I don't really look into those guys too much. Move this along to about 120 hours out now. And we're still gonna be continuing to compare here. This is what the GFS is looking like right now, and then here's what the Canadian look like. These two have been in agreement a lot over these last few days, so there is some increase in confidence, but not much really for me to be, not much to be had on my end at least. I'm still not very confident in regards to some of the ramifications that will end up coming with this system here. But this is towards the end of the week here. It's a separate piece of energy on the northern stream here, and then beyond that, I guess will be our next storm system that we'll have to watch. But GFS starts to show a different run at about 150 hours out. So this is by no means set in stone. This isn't ironclad at all. But from the looks of the GFS here, this doesn't look like it's going to produce a huge snowstorm. And then the Canadian model here, it pretty much looks like a cold rain event. Maybe some snow, possibly towards very far upstate New York. But beyond that, I don't even think Maine looks like it's going to get snow according to these two models. Let's go ahead and look at the 12Z Euro, see if there's any sort of snowfall totals that we might be able to hone in on. And really, when we look at it about 138 hours out, this is getting towards the end of the weekend. It's not a lot of certainty to be had here. Even when we get into the start of next week, just not a lot going on here. Most of the snow totals are going to be focused mainly around Texas. Now, this right here I think is very bold, and I don't think this is going to correlate into anything like this. Some areas around the Panhandle could be expecting up to about 2 feet of snow. Even beyond 2 feet of snow, almost 30 inches. I'm not sure about that. That is a strong low pressure though, so I can't rule it out. But I'm not jumping on that. I'm not sure if I buy it. But that's what the Euro is showing. But really, beyond the Northwest getting some snowfall totals, which is nothing out of the ordinary for these guys. For the most part, we're looking at about maybe a foot. Some spots in higher elevations could be getting 2 feet, but anywhere else, it's just another snow event for you guys. Anywhere else, though, it's next to nothing. It's going to be more of a warm, cold rain type event. It's going to be disruptive weather, but not threatening. I don't, as of right now, I don't see it as threatening weather at this point. Now, let me not say that too quickly because, again, we've seen how these last few runs have gone. We keep on going back and forth and back and forth, and we don't know what lies ahead on the OOZ run or the morning runs tomorrow. So the last thing we're going to look at here is the blend of models here. This is looking towards the middle of next week. Here's our next storm system. So we're not going to really pay attention to this area. We're going to be looking mainly more towards the east. And as of right now, really, outside of a little bit of traces of snow, maybe an inch in some places around New York, and maybe some potential snow around Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont, some of which could be significant, maybe about 6 to 10 inches is possible. So not really a lot to hone in on. And I mean, it's the same with Canadian. Canadian is a little bit more generous with the snow, so to speak. There are some areas here. I think this is also because of an additional short wave that follows this big storm. This more robust looking storm system, I should say. And we end up getting just a little bit of snow around the Ohio Valley. And then it's a similar story around the north and east. Slightly higher totals, but not by that much, even then. And then this is the National Weather Service's blend of models here. So this is where we get to that happy medium. There's potential for some snow around northern New York, where we could get up to about 3 inches. And then as we get further and further into the north and east, the totals have a potential of being a bit higher. But beyond that, really not a lot going on here. And over towards Texas, where we had the crazy snow totals from the GFS on the 12Z run, we're getting about 1, 2, 3 inches, which is a little bit more reasonable to me, in my opinion. I don't think the storm system is that robust to the point that we could get an absolute burial. We can actually be burying towns like Lubbock with 20 inches of snow. I just don't see that. And then on top of that, it's a positively tilted storm. It doesn't have a lot of cold air coming in behind it to really support that. Well, again, we'll just have to see how things roll with the next model run. But we're getting to the end of the video here. If you liked what I did here, definitely drop me a like. Comment your thoughts on what you think will happen next with the models. What kind of weather are you rooting for on Thanksgiving? Also, even comment what you might be eating. Why not? And then, of course, anyone who hasn't subscribed and you've been watching the channel for a bit, definitely do so. It helps me out a lot. Helps get the video out to more people. And, yeah, that's really all I got here. But this has been Metalhead Weatherman. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good night.